Hello everybody and welcome to CAD-Prof.com. This is lesson number 4 of a 10-part series for landscape. I've included with the download for lesson 4 video the PDF file that accompanies it, and I will boot up the AutoCAD program. And as it boots up, today we have a number of different commands that we're going to be learning, focusing on the modify menu in order to help us draw our capstone project quickly and efficiently. And now that the program is booted up, I'm simply going to lower the screen. We're going to start a brand new project. So File, New. We're going to experiment with some of the commands and then apply it to our capstone. So we select the ACAD DWT template file, open that up, and we'll go through the basics of setting this up. Units, type that in. We're going to select architectural units, switch from decimal, which is the default setting. Precision, leave it at a 1/16 of an inch, that's fine. For the limits, we're going to accept the existing limits of the page. So when I type in limits, it's identifying the lower left as 0, 0, press enter, and the upper right as 1 foot and 9 inches, press enter again. And now let's visually see that screen area. Let's go into our drawing aids. Beside the grid icon, we're going to click on the arrow that comes down and select SAP settings. And here all we're going to do is remove the adaptive grid and the display grid and then select OK. Let's make this full screen, so we type in Z enter, A enter, and we're ready to practice our exercise. We're going to create 2 layers. So in the layers property menu, we're going to click that on, and one of the layers is a base layer that we're going to draw our base object. Let's make that green, so I'll click on the colored chip and switch it to green, select OK. And then we're going to make an object layer, so we click on the new layer icon once again. Object is the name of that layer, and we'll make that blue so it's a nice contrast. Okay, let's close this menu down. I'm going to go back into the layer property menu above, switch layers to base, and we're going to draw our first object. So the object we're going to draw today is a rectangle that's 6 inches along the base, 4 inches along the height. So we're going to click on the rectangle icon in the draw menu. Pick a location somewhere in the bottom left-hand corner, approximately where I am. And once we've clicked that, we simply type in 6,4. Notice I'm not using the inch mark because that's the default setting. Now let's switch to the object layer. We're going to draw a very quick circle. We're not going to give it any dimensional value, so I'm not using the different options of circle radius or diameter. I just clicked on the circle command. Now I'm going to click on that corner point right here, or the end point, and generate a circle. So basically we reviewed the first 3 lessons in just about 5 minutes. So once again, I expect you to review those lessons so that you can keep up as we move forward on the information we've already learned. So the first thing we're going to do is move this circle from one point to another. Now you need to know a bit of information. First of all, you need to know the geometry of an object. So I'm going to click on the circle, and you'll notice that there's a number of different nodes or handles that define the circle. This is the center, and the 4 outer edges are the quadrants, and they're located at 0 degrees, 90, 180, and 270. So we're going to move this from the center of the circle that's landing right on the corner of this rectangle to the opposite corner of the rectangle. So if I know this distance, which I do, which is 6 inches, I could type in that distance or use the geometry that's available to me, which is the method we're going to use here. So I'm going to press escape. I'm going to click on move, and that's in the modify menu because it's adjusting something that's already on our screen. And as I move my cursor down to the screen, you notice it says select objects. That should be a key to you. We're going to use our selection sets. So that can be individual, a window, or a crossing. But with crossing we have to be careful because we don't want to actually select the square or the rectangle down below it. We just want to cross the circle. So I'm going to use the first method, which is just click on the circle. It still has select objects because we can pick more than one object. So we have to tell the program we're finished selecting. So simply press enter. So that takes us to the next step of a move command, which is to identify the base point, or in this case it's showing you that it's to specify the base point. So I'm going to use the corner of this object. If it wasn't right on the corner and I wanted to use the center of the circle, I move my mouse first over the circle, and notice it now identifies the center of that circle. So if I click on the circle, it's now moved that object to the center of my crosshairs, which equals the center of the circle. So now I can move that to the next location. Notice the only option I have here is this endpoint because there's no circle there. So I'm going to click on the endpoint, and I've successfully moved my circle from the corner of the rectangle in one location to the next. Copy works on the same principle. The only difference is that it leaves the copy behind. So let's try that. Click on copy. First thing it does, select object. So this time I'm just going to create a window. Notice how with window, I'm not enclosing the entire rectangle once again. So I can select the circle without touching the rectangle. I don't want to pick anything else, so press enter. And this time, instead of the center of the circle, I can go right to the endpoint, and then I can go to the next endpoint. You'll notice that the circle, after I've selected the second point, stays on my cursor, because the copy command would allow me to copy it over and over as many times as I want. Once I'm finished with the copy command, I must press enter. So there's an extra step involved in the copy command. Let's try to copy this using another method, a distance or displacement method. So I want to move these two circles from the location of this corner to the location of the corner down below. When we drew this rectangle, we drew it 4 inches apart. Now the 4 inches are going to go down along the y-axis, and then it's not going to change the x. So I'm going to select copy, and this time by using crossing, I'm going to cross the two circles. Notice that my crossing didn't cross the rectangle. That's important. I just want to cross the circles. So I've crossed my two circles, and then I click on my second location. I don't want to pick anything else, so I press enter. This time I'm going to use a displacement. By using a displacement, I can basically click anywhere on my screen for my base point. So I'm going to click somewhere to the left of the circles. And this time I'm going to type in 0, -4 and press enter. And notice it's copied those two circles down 4 units, or in this case 4 inches. So it's still looking to copy just like it did before. So in order to exit this command or end the command, I must press enter. So I'm just going to undo what I did. So press Control Z. So that undid the last copy, and then Control Z again, which undid the last copy. Now if I press Control Z one more time, it moved it back to its original steps. Remember, whether you're using the undo command or the arrow or Control Z, it works the same way. So I've stepped back to where I was before. This time I'm going to move the circle from this intersection here where the circle touches the rectangle and move it to the center. Let's say, for instance, I want to move this circle to the opposite side. What I must find is the distance. So in this case, I don't know the size of the circle itself, so I can't tell it to move a distance. But I can move it based on geometry. The circle, if I click on it, you'll notice that there's 4 different quadrant points that are also identified when you simply click on the object, as well as the center. Press Escape. When I click on the rectangle, you'll notice I've got the 4 corners, and then these markers that indicate the midpoint of each of the lines. Press Escape. So I want to move this circle based on that definitional point, which is a quadrant, to the end point of this line. So how can we do that? Let's go into the snap settings at the bottom of your menu in the drawing aids, and you'll notice that there's an option here called quadrant, and it refers to a circle. Let's select that to put that on. So this time I want to copy the circle. So I'm going to click on the circle. It's asking me to select the object. I don't want to pick anything else, so I press enter. And notice now, not only do I have a center point, but I have these diamond-shaped objects that identify the quadrants. So I don't want to move it from this quadrant to that location. I want to move it from the opposite quadrant to the opposite location. And notice it stays on that quadrant position. So I could also do it here, but I can't do it there because it won't highlight that particular quadrant. So I'm simply going to press Enter. If I want to repeat the command, I simply press Enter again. And I'm going to click on the circle, press Enter, click on the quadrant, click on the quadrant, and there we have it. So by knowing the different object snap positions, we can utilize the geometry of the object to move it. And again, all of this is happening to 16 decimal place accuracy, so it's the most efficient way of moving objects around. In today's lesson, we're also going to be learning about a tool called Offset. I'm going to select everything on my screen, simply press Delete. Notice what I just did? I didn't go to the Erase tool. I used another method of erasing. And the way I did that was simply by creating a crossing over the entire object while I'm not in a command, and then pressing Delete, a fourth way of erasing objects that are on your screen. So we're going to create another layer called Offset. So in the Layers property menu, I've clicked it on. I'm going to create a new layer and call this Offset. And again, I'm just using the name of the command. And let's use a very dark gray and select OK. And then close this menu. Let's make that layer current. Let's draw a couple things here. So first of all, I'm going to draw a line across my screen. Now you can see I can barely see that line. I've got a couple of options. If you create a layer and it's difficult to actually see that layer, you can go back into the layer property menu and change that color chip at any time. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to change that color chip to red. Select OK. And now, when I close the menu, it stands out. So we have that opportunity of changing the color of an object at any time we wish. So I've simply drawn a line across the top of my screen. Offset is a unique command because it really helps with construction. So I'm going to go up to the Modify menu and click on Offset. You'll notice it's in the Modify menu because I need an object already on my screen before I can use the command. So when I click on Offset, the first thing it's asking me to do is to specify an offset distance. We're going to put in 1 and enter for 1 inch. Now with Offset, select Object to Offset. Notice it doesn't say Select Object. I can't use a window or a crossing. I have to individually click on the object, and then notice what it does. As soon as I click on the object, it gives me 2 optional locations. Now if I go up, it's going to repeat the line that I already have, but if I go down, it's going to show me that I have a line down below. And there we have a series of 1 inch offsets. I'm going to draw a line in the vertical direction. And this time, press Enter, I'm going to offset that 1.5 inches, 1.5. And I'll click on the line, and I'll click on the side. Click on the line, click on the side. So effectively, I've made a grid, 1 inch in the horizontal direction, and 1.5 inch in the vertical direction. Now Offset can also work on objects. These would be construction lines. And the nice thing about construction lines is we can create a grid and then actually draw over top of it. So let's go into the Offset menu and select Object. And now click on the Line tool. And you can see how I can actually select different points and simply draw an object based on a grid I made. It's a very quick and precise method of drawing because the offsets, even though I've only put in 1, it again is the 16 decimal place accuracy. Now Offset can also work on objects like circles. So I'm going to click on the circle command, click on an intersection, and just draw a small circle. Now when I select Offset, it automatically goes to the setting that I last used, which was 1.5 inches. That's the new default for this file while it's open. As soon as I close the file and open again, it's going to regenerate the command to ask me what that distance is. I'm going to put in 0.5 for 1/2 inch. Now when I select the circle and go outwards, you can see it does concentric circles based on the center point. I can also do the same inwards until 1/2 inch won't fit anymore. So I can offset shapes like circles. Notice we offset lines or a series of lines. We can also offset rectangles. What's unique about offsetting a rectangle, when I click on offset here, is that the rectangle itself, all four sides offset. Where with a line, only the single line offsets. It recognizes this as a single segment or a single element. With the rectangle command, it recognizes the rectangle as a single object or element. So when I offset that, it automatically offsets all four sides. It's a very useful and powerful tool. So let's see how we can use these new skills to our drawing. I'm not going to close this. I'm just going to leave this so you can see how the tabs work up above the drawing editor. And I'm going to open our CAD project, our capstone project. So I'm going to click on File and then Open. And our last project was in lesson number 3. And there is mine. Now this is why it's important that you know where you save the files, where you've located them, so it's easy to access them. And I'm going to select Open. And there's the drawing we worked on last day, the actual cap and the pilaster. I've already downloaded the PDF file that accompanies this. I'm just going to minimize the screen. I'm just going to open up the PDF file. Let's rotate this into position. What I've indicated here are 3 exercises using offset. And the gray lines are the construction lines that I've created for this. And you should print them off. They're not very visible here on the screen unless you really zoom them up. So it's easier to print them off and take a look at that. But have that to the side so you can see and follow along with the exercise I'm going to show you momentarily. Let me open up CAD once again here. And I'm going to use the same model that we did before. Remember, this was the rectangle. These were the individual lines. Let's try the same exercise using offset. So I'm going to create a layer. And anytime I want to create specific layers for things like construction, I'm going to actually call them construction. And I'm going to make that particular layer red. Let's make it current. Close down the menu. Okay. I'm going to draw a single line straight up and down. Now, there's a couple ways of doing this. I can draw the line and type in the value, but we have a different line for that. It's called a construction line. And it's a very useful tool because it draws perfectly horizontal and vertical lines. So in the Draw menu, there's this icon here. It has a single node in the middle and then arrows that go in opposite directions. And what I'm going to draw is from the base of this column, a line up and a line sideways. Now, in order to get that perfect horizontal and vertical line work, press the F8 key at the top of your keyboard. That specifies perfect horizontal or vertical lines. It's called the ortho command, and it's a drawing aid. And the nice thing about it is when I click my second point straight up and I move my mouse to the right, it now does a horizontal line from the same point I started. Press Enter, and then F8 once again. Now that may have been confusing. You may have to try it a few times to really get a handle on what that command can do. So let's take a look at this project and create some of the different elements using offset or construction lines and then drawing on top of it. So offset is a modify tool, which simply means I can now switch the layer to whatever I'm working on. I'm going to work on the column layer, which is green, but I'm going to offset the actual construction lines that I've generated here in the construction layer. So I'm going to use offset to generate the actual pilaster, which is 11 inches wide and 4 feet tall. So I select offset, 11, enter, click on the construction line, click on the side, click on offset, type in 4 feet, enter, click on the construction line, click on the side. It's a pattern, and you have to get used to that pattern of how we use the command. Now I'm in the column layer. I didn't switch layers. I'm in the column layer. I'm going to click on the line, And because my object snap is set to find these intersections, all I do is click on the 4 intersections to be able to draw my pilaster. And you can see this technique is fairly quick. Now you may say that, well, the rectangle command was quicker. Well, it's not in the next steps, because what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in to the actual cap, and you'll see the difference here. Let's switch to the cap layer, and I'm going to offset the distances that I describe in that PDF file. The vertical distance of the cap is 2, so click on offset, type in 2, click on the line, click on the side, click on the line, click on the side. The horizontal distance of the overhang is 1, offset, type in 1 and enter, click on the line, click on the side, click on the line, click on the side. The center of this column is half of 11 inches or 5.5 inches, so I select offset, 5.5, enter, click on the line, click on the side. Now you can start seeing it gets confusing unless you're really focused on what we're looking at. So let's see what we're going to draw here. I'm already in the cap layer. I'm going to click on the line tool. I'm going to start at this end, the opposite end of where I started last time. So the bottom right hand corner, I'm going to draw my base of the cap, the side of the cap, the peak of the cap, the side of it, the base of it. Press enter twice, and then I'm going to click on to draw the edge of the cap, and then press enter. Look at how quick that was. And the best part about this, I did very little math. That's really key, because like I said before, I don't like to do math. And plus, if I do math, I have the possibility of making a mistake. So avoiding that math part of the equation is critical to us working very successfully and quickly. So let's move down towards the bottom part of this, the foundation. With construction lines, it can get very busy, as you can see here. So once we've used these construction lines, let's delete them. We don't need them anymore. I need the center one. I need the edges of the column, but I don't need these two here. There we go. I'm going to keep the base. We're going to work on the bottom of this, which is the foundation and then the footing. Let's take a look at our drawing. I'm going to switch to the concrete foundation layer. I'm going to offset my first step. Now you'll notice that it's a solid line above grade, and then below grade it's a hidden line. So the first 6 inches are solid. So I'm going to select offset, type in 6 and enter. Click on the line, click on the side. Now notice that there is an overhang for the stonework. So if you take a look at the drawing, it says a 1/2 inch. Okay, let's zoom in on this by rolling the wheel. Offset 0.5. And I'm going to offset the column inwards. So the foundation is 1/2 inch in, so that we have a drip edge. There's my concrete foundation layer. It's already active. I need to draw these lines here. So intersection, intersection, and intersection, intersection. And I'm going to roll my mouse out. You'll notice from the grade level down to the footing, it's 4 feet according to the drawing. So offset 4 feet. And I'm going to offset that line down 4. The footing itself has a thickness of 4 inches. Offset 4 and enter. Okay, now this is where we got to be careful. We got 2 sets of lines here. The outer lines are the column above the grade level, or actually the stone portion of it. So I'm going to click on that. I don't want to use that number, because if you look at the measurement of the footing, it's based on a 4-inch distance from the side of the foundation, not on the actual dimension of the pilaster. So I'm going to offset 4 inches from the side and from the side. And now I'm ready to draw my footing and my foundation here. So I'm already in the correct layer. So I simply draw my line from 6 inches below, down, enter, enter, 6 inches below and down, enter, enter. I can also, instead of drawing lines, use the rectangle tool to draw the actual footing. There we go. I'm going to change the actual color of my construction layer because you can't see it here. That's what I did when I printed them off for you. But I can also simply turn them off. So I'm going to go in the construction layer, turn that layer off, and there is my footing, my foundation. The last thing we're going to do is quickly draw the rebars that we have here. So I've turned on the construction layer, and I'm going to make the rebar layer current. Again, this can be confusing until you do this several times. Now, why am I going to turn the rebar layer to be current? Because we're going to be drawing that next. I'm going to remove this center construction line because I don't need it. The other two in this direction I need. Now, for the purposes of this project, the rebar is going to be inset 2 inches, and from the top of the footing 2 inches, and from the side of the footing 2 inches. That's not dimensioned anywhere. The overall rebar height is 2 feet from the top of the rebar. I think that'll make more sense by following along with the video. So the first thing I'm going to do is offset 2 inches all the different construction lines that I have to be able to draw this object. You can see how confusing this is getting. And now this line here, we're going to offset that 2 feet. Offset 2 feet this line up. We're going to draw part of the rebar, turn off all these construction lines, and hopefully that will make a lot more sense to us. So I'm in the rebar layer, click on line. That's the point at the top of my rebar, right here. This is the point at the base of my rebar before the curve. We're ignoring the curve for now. And this is the next point of our rebar. Click on that, press enter, and then I'm simply going to turn off the construction layer so we can actually see the rebar. Now again, with all the lines and the colors and everything, it can be really confusing. I hope the print will actually help because I've grayed out the actual construction layer so it's a bit more clear. We're almost finished here. This is the outer edge of our actual rebar. The rebar is a 1/2 inch diameter. I'm just going to zoom in on that. So I'm going to select offset, type in 0.5, and it's 0.5 in and 0.5 down. And then I will close up the rebar, clicking on the endpoints and clicking on the endpoints. And there we have it. Next day, we're going to talk about converting these lines into hidden lines and also adding the curve that will be at the bottom of this object. Save this file, save as. I'm going to be putting it into the next lesson folder for us. And I'm going to leave it at L1. And then we'll pick up from here for the next day. We went through a lot of material today. And again, that practice over and over to make sure that you understand what you're drawing. Refer to all the PDFs that I've uploaded for you so that you can see exactly the numbers I've put into the program. Thank you for joining me today. I look forward to seeing you soon.